topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, San Antonio. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you, for the last 16 years, the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. The other day, I was looking through YouTube. We're doing our tax relief show this morning. I was looking to YouTube, other companies that are on there, and you would see 40 views, 50 views, 10 views. I saw one high as like 83 views. So our expert, attorney Lance Drury, and this is not the only show. I just looked at his last two shows, over 1,000 views. And I got to tell you, we so appreciate our audience, and we're on about 70 other platforms, but YouTube actually shows us the numbers. But I am so proud of this show. We actually do a national show, we do a San Antonio show, and we do a Tennessee, Missouri show, 3 shows a month. This gentleman, my friend, attorney Lance Drury. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning, Steve. I'm glad to be here. It's a great day, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is. I'm not going to tell you the temperature here in Florida with you being in the St. Louis area. I won't do that to you, but you're a lot colder than we are.
Well, it was 15 degrees Monday night, but it's going to get up to 65 today for a high, and by Saturday, it's going to be 80 degrees. We're not having a bad winter, I can tell you that much. We had one bad snowfall, 13 and a half inches, but they had record snowfall north of us last week. I mean, they were getting heavy storms in Minnesota and I think Chicago and that whole area, Wisconsin. So we lucked out of all that. So we can't complain about the winter we've been having.
So, Lance, I got to tell you, I am so proud of what you've done with your firm. You're out of St. Genevieve, Missouri, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. So, you know, people in Missouri, I'm sure they've heard of St. Genevieve, but I always say the St. Louis area. But what you have done with your firm, and the only way you could do this with your firm is you give incredible customer service, you save your clients money, and you're a go-getter. And what you've done with the law firm of Lance Drury, how you've spread out, I'm just so proud to be part of this.
Well, I'm just proud to be here as well, Steve. This is a great show. I love doing your show. I love answering people's questions. I love the comments that they make. So it's just a great deal. I've been very fortunate. I'm 72 years old. This basically started about 20 years ago, the tax resolution work. And, you know, I came into the office one day because I was with this outfit out of Colorado and they had me relegated to rural Missouri. So I drive to Columbia, Missouri on a Saturday, see 4 to 6 people, drive back home. That's a 3-hour drive each way. And I said, I came in one day and I said, we're going into St. Louis. We're going on the radio. And it's just taken off ever since then. That was about 12 years ago. So it's just been great guns ever since.
Lance, I had a couple people wrote me because you always mention your age, 72. And I had a couple people say, his voice doesn't sound like he's 72. It sounds much younger than that.
Well, it's because I keep going. I mean, this is why I don't want to retire. I'm afraid that if I retired in 6 months, I'd keel over and be dead. I've got a good friend of mine. He's in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. He coached girls volleyball, won all kinds of games, and he's been retired now for 10 years, and I can tell his mind's not nearly as sharp as it used to be because he golfs and watches TV all the time. So, this is why I want to keep working, because it stimulates my mind, and I'm a firm believer you got to move your body, you got to use your mind, or you're going to lose both of them.
Well, I was just telling Lance, God, the questions. This is the easiest show to prepare for. I don't have to do anything. You all write us the questions, fill the show. We can probably fill an hour show easily with your questions. But
we may have to do that one day, Steve.
Hey, I'm up for. I got to tell you, we have people who write us. Your show is actually. It's 25 minutes. It could be a 50-minute show easily with the questions we get. So let me get to the questions. I had some people say, how come you didn't tell them my questions? So I'm putting those at the top. And I want to start with Greg in Leon Valley. He said, I just found your show in December. I'm looking forward to watching more of your shows. Will you handle all the communications with the IRS and the Department of Revenue?
The firm will, yes. I don't handle cases anymore. I have some that I monitor and that, but for the most part, I have 2 attorneys down in San Antonio, and they're very competent. I was in conversations with Amir. Amir is the managing attorney down there, and we talked over the weekend because one of our clients got a levy notice. He wrote us like 5 emails. We were in contact with him on Sunday. And we got the levy lifted Monday morning because Amir did all this work over the weekend in preparation for calling the IRS on Monday. Well, he's so ecstatic. He's going to pay us more money now. His mom's got problems. He's going to get us to handle her problems. So this is what we do. I work every Saturday and Sunday morning. This past weekend, I probably worked 3 hours here, and then I drove to my St. Louis office, and then Sunday morning I worked about 3 hours. So, yeah, we have excellent people, and it is a condition. Not only will we handle all communications with the IRS or any state agencies that are involved, but it's a condition. It's in our engagement letter that you are not to contact the IRS or any taxing authority that you retain as for yourself, because then we don't know what's going on, and then, the IRS will say, well, this is what your client told me. The client will deny it. Well, there's nothing we can do about it because we weren't privy to those conversations. So we don't want you talking directly to them. They take advantage of lay people. You'll say the wrong thing to them. So that's why we handle all the communications with the taxing authorities on our clients' behalf.
Lance, you brought up a great point. I have learned so much from you. You can really get yourself in hot water by actually talking to them. I know you want to save some money and you think you can handle it yourself, but I have learned from Lance, if you try talking to the IRS, you could make things so much worse for yourself.
Oh, and I got to give you a couple examples. I had a guy outside of Nashville. This is just last year. And he owed $1 million, had been handling it for himself for years on his own, had 4 different revenue officers. And then, of course, it was going to cost him a lot of money. When you owe $1 million, it's going to be a lot of work. And so we had a conversation with him, and he didn't hire us. 2 weeks later, they took everything he owned, including over $300,000 in his retirement account. He's in his 50s. They took every asset he owned, all his stocks, all his retirement, because he tried to do it on his own. And here's the other thing, Steve. And this is how I know that the IRS takes advantage of lay people. People think they can do it on their own. They'll call the IRS. They'll set up a payment plan. Then they call us. And the first words out of their mouth are, I can't afford the monthly payment. And I go, then why did you agree to do this? And they'll go, because this is what they told me I had to do. I said, that's not true. They're taking advantage of you. You call them up, they're going to make you pay every last dime. I've seen it over and over and over again. They'll never tell you this is all based on your ability to pay it back. Every now and then that happens, but it's very, very seldom is somebody forthright and honest with you from the IRS when you try to call them up and set up a payment plan.
Well, our next question kind of answers that. It's this Kelly in Alamo Heights. I haven't contacted the IRS because I can't pay my taxes. What do you suggest I do?
Well, you need to call professional assistance. You don't want to do this yourself. We can go in, we have special software. We can see the whole history of your case all the way back to 1990. And the reason we do that is in these initial consults, people will tell us what their problem is. Half the time, they're 100% correct. But the other half of the time, they only know part of the problem. It's so confusing, so complicated to the average individual. You need professional help. And so, you don't want to put your head in the sand and ignore it. But we have special software that will go in. The IRS doesn't even know we're in there. And we'll get all this information. We'll know the whole history of your case from 1990 forward. And we can see if they're in a position to levy. We can see how much liability you have. We can see if you're eligible for first-time penalty abatement. We can see if there's liens on your property. But the last thing you want to do is call them up yourself, because that just puts you on their radar. We never call the IRS unless there's already a deadline in place or we're ready to settle the case. Because once you call them up, they're going to make unreasonable demands, unreasonable deadlines. And so it's not a good idea just to call them up. And I've seen people who told me they had called them up and they gave them 20 days to get it resolved. And I said, that was a mistake. And the guy told me, I knew as soon as they answered and started talking to me that I had made a huge mistake by talking to them.
Craig in San Antonio, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your show. Can your firm get the IRS to remove penalties and interest on taxes I owe?
You cannot get interest removed. That's statutory. It's just like a loan from the bank. They consider that they're giving you a loan when you owe them all this money, so you're going to have to pay the interest. Now, there's two ways for penalty abatement. First, and the easiest, is what's called first-time penalty abatement. And you can get the penalties kicked for 1 year only. It doesn't extend beyond that. But you had to be 100% compliant, which means you paid your taxes on time and you filed on time for 3 years prior to the year that you're requesting penalty abatement for. So, for example, if you're requesting penalty abatement for 2020, you better have been 100% compliant for 17, 18, and 19. If you're a day late in filing your tax returns, you're not going to qualify. The other way, and the hardest, is to try to get penalty abatement for reasonable cause. Now, the most likely scenario there for abatement of those penalties would be, you had medical issues, you were hospitalized, you had some disability, or you had a close family member that you had to tend to because of medical issues. So that's the most likely. There's others, but, it's hard to get penalty abatement for reasonable cause. It's not something that everybody's going to get. So you got to have a good argument as to why you didn't pay your taxes for those years to get the penalties removed.
Ralph in Austin wants to know how much of my wages can be garnished.
Theoretically, the IRS can take up to 90% of your take-home pay.
Ooh.
Now, when they do garnish you, you're going to get from your payroll human resources department a page to fill out. So if you have certain exemptions, children, dependents, they won't take up to 90%. But even if they take 50%, how are you going to pay the bills?
Yeah.
So,
really.
so you want to be in preventative mode. It's a lot easier to stop a levy than it is to get a levy lifted. And then you got to do it real quick for two reasons. A bank levy, the bank's required to hold the funds for 21 days before they send it into the IRS. So you're going to have to get financial information to the IRS to prove it would be a financial hardship for the levy to remain, and they'll lift it in whole or in part, depending upon your financial situation. But here's the significant thing about a wage levy, Steve. It is continuous until you get it lifted. So if you just let it go, that levy can go on for a year or longer until the amount of the levy is satisfied. And I've had people that I've met with, they didn't call me until the levy had been going on for a year. And so, why you would continue to let that happen, I don't know. But some people do that, but you don't want to do that. You got to be proactive about this. Generally, it's not a good idea to delay when you're dealing with the taxing authorities. There are exceptions, but for the most part, you want to get on this and be proactive about it.
John in Fredericksburg. So why is the IRS not answering my calls?
Well, I'll tell you, people hire me just because they can't get through to the IRS. And the problem is they don't have enough employees. And the employees that they do have are not properly trained. So the problem is if you call them, you're not going to know whether what they're telling you is true or not, because we spend 50 to 100 hours a year or more. Myself and all my attorneys in Missouri, Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, we all spend 50 to 100 hours a year or more keeping up on this stuff because things are constantly changing. So the problem is people will call me and say, I had to wait on the phone for 2 hours. They never answer. Or they'll call them and they'll get them and then they're disconnected. But they do not have the manpower to answer all the calls that are coming into them. They don't read half the correspondence they get. So here's the problem. Nobody wants them funded because they don't want them coming after them. But guess what? Once they come after you, things are taking much longer because the service is terrible. Everything is taking a long, long time with the IRS. I have never seen the IRS as bad as they are now, and I don't see that improving in any way, shape, or form until they get additional funding, and I don't know when that's going to happen.
Kirsten in San Antonio, I love your show. You are so informative. Do you use attorneys or enrolled agents?
Well, I have used enrolled agents in the past. Some of those were former IRS employees, and I don't think they're as client-oriented, as aggressive, or spend as much time as attorneys do. So right now, I have 7 or 8 attorneys in my office. I need to count them. I got 2 here, 2 in Tennessee, 2 in Texas, and 1 in Florida. And we're getting ready to hire another one, hopefully out of Houston. And so we would have 8 attorneys then. But we may go back and get some enrolled agents down the road. I don't know yet. We're in discussions now. I'm talking to the attorneys, and maybe some of the less complex cases we might hire an enrolled agent on, but all the complex cases are going to remain manned by attorneys because I just don't see that they spend as much time or as client-oriented as an attorney is. And, they're not trained in argumentation. That's what attorneys go to law school for. We're versed in negotiations. We know how to do that. We know how to make the arguments. And even though this is not an area, unlike other areas of law, where there's a lot of legal research and argumentation, there are still a lot of cases that require that. And, if you get an enrolled agent, they don't have that background. They don't know how to read the cases like an attorney does. So for those reasons, we're still going to have just attorneys for at least the more complex and higher liability cases.
Well, since this show is targets the San Antonio area, I've got some great news. Lance doesn't even know this. We're still working on it. We get so many people writing us from San Antonio, Houston, South Florida, wanting to know, why is our show also not in Spanish? Well, we are working on it, and I think maybe by next month we will be able to offer the same show but in Spanish. I haven't even told Lance this, but
that would be fantastic. And one of the things, we haven't done it yet, but we're talking about, if we ever get a legal assistant down there, we're going to make sure that she's Spanish speaking.
Yes.
Just because, the bulk, particularly from San Antonio, much more than even Houston, I would say 80% of the people that call me are Hispanic, or certainly have a Hispanic name. So, that's what we need to do down there. And we're moving in that direction. The managing attorney in my Nashville office speaks Spanish. He learned it because he was going to Peru for his church, and he met a Peruvian woman, and now they're married. So he knows fluent Spanish. And so, if it ever got serious enough, we had a big enough case, we would get him on the phone with people in the San Antonio area, as well as with Amir, to talk to these people about their tax problems here in the United States and with Uncle Sam.
Well, there's no doubt we're going to do this. And I tell you also, a lot of the Miami letters we get also want to know why the show is not in Spanish. But I just want people to know we're working on it. I think I'm going to have it finalized by next month, and you will be able to hear the show in Spanish also. We've only got a few minutes left. Let me I got to get this one in. Leon in San Antonio says, I just want to tell you, I appreciate the time you give to educate us. And I thought that was really nice, because they're taking the time just to write that in. So we appreciate that. Trying to find a question here, Lance, that might not be so detailed. This is Larry in Kerrville. Can I stop IRS collections or garnishments while I explore my options?
Well, I guess, they're going to want you, once you're garnished, once you're levied, they're going to want you to set up some type of agreement for you in return for lifting the levy, for the most part. Now, we had this case last week, and we're trying to run out the clock. And he got gone. He should not have been garnished, because we filed an equivalency hearing request, and it was prior to the levy. And by IRS policy, when you file a request for an equivalency hearing, they're not supposed to levy you. So it was basically a wrongful levy. And so we got the levy lifted without reaching an agreement with the IRS. But for the most part, Steve, you cannot get a levy lifted unless you set up some type of installment agreement with the IRS. Or you can prove that you don't have the funds or the financial wherewithal to pay any of it back. But you've got to get it resolved most of the time in order to get the levy lifted. Now, like I said before, the bank levy is a one-time deal. After 21 days, that money has to be set in. And it's only good for the day it hits the bank. But the IRS can file successive levies. But the wage levy is continuous, so you've got to get on that one right away.
The name of the firm is law firm of Lance Drury. Lance, if they call your toll-free number from anywhere?
Yes.
Okay. Because we've been giving out the numbers for all the offices, but
I don't see that they're at the bottom of the thing today, Steve.
It should be there.
Maybe I just can't see it on my screen.
We'll check. The number is 888-367-6512. Do you have a website, Lance?
I do. It's LanceDruryLaw.com. Lance, D-R-U-R-Y law.com.
Lance is going to be with us the last Friday of this month, and we'll be doing our Missouri-Tennessee show. Lance, as always, we love having you on. I can't wait for our next show. Stay warm.
I will. Don't worry. It's warming up here, Steve. We're going to have Florida weather on Saturday, 80 degrees.
We love you, bro. We'll see you then. That's attorney Lance Drury. Folks, I'm telling you, if you've got a tax problem, you want to give them a call. Lance Drury. That's it for us today. We'll be back in with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.